Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're actually unpacking a lesson that reveals how the very best authors, well, they're basically time travelers. I mean, they don't just tell a story in a straight, boring A to Z line. No way. They jump backward into the past. They drop these secret, hidden clues about the future. They literally manipulate time itself just to keep you on the edge of your seat. So today, we're going to unlock these ultimate author secrets, mastering narrative time through flashbacks and foreshadowing. Let's anchor this whole concept with a really profound thought from Isaiah 46:10. It says, "I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times what is still to come." Knowing the end from the very beginning, that's a divine concept. And the curriculum points out that authors actually kind of mimic this in their own writing. Think about it. As the creator of a fictional world, the author knows exactly how the story wraps up before you've even flipped past page 1. And they use that incredible power to totally guide your reading experience. All right, here's a quick roadmap for today's explainer. We've got 6 sections: mastering time, defining concepts, how to spot clues, famous examples, a quick test your knowledge, and finally, we'll wrap up with education and peace. Let's dive in. Section 1, mastering time in stories. So here's the what and the why of our lesson. Why should we even care how authors play with the clock? Well, because understanding time manipulation dramatically deepens how you actually comprehend what you're reading. Here's exactly what this curriculum aims to teach you by the end of this lesson. We're going to cover how to spot a flashback, how to identify those super sneaky foreshadowing clues, and how these techniques totally change the way a story is told. Knowing how to recognize these tools, it doesn't just make you a better reader, it basically turns you into a literary detective. Moving on to Section 2, defining concepts, flashback, and foreshadow. Grab your mental notepads because we are going to explicitly lay out the definitions for our 2 core literary tools right now. This is really the big idea of our lesson today. First up is the flashback. A flashback is an interruption in the present storyline to show an event from the past. Imagine you're watching a movie, right? And suddenly the screen gets a little wavy, maybe the music shifts, and boom. You are suddenly seeing the main character as a 5-year-old. That is a flashback. And authors use this brilliantly. It helps explain a character's deeply hidden past, or it reveals key pieces of information that directly shape their present reality. Because let's face it, you can't truly understand why a character acts the way they do today unless you know what happened to them yesterday. Now, contrast that with foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is when the author drops these small, strategic hints about what's coming later in the story. If a flashback pulls us backward into the past, foreshadowing propels us forward into the future. Authors don't just dump the plot on you all at once. Instead, they leave these little breadcrumbs. They do this to build incredible suspense and to subconsciously prepare you, the reader, for future events. When the massive plot twist finally hits, foreshadowing is exactly what makes you slap your forehead and go, "Oh man, I totally should have seen that coming." To put it simply, a flashback is looking back at the past, while foreshadowing is looking forward to the future. But the curriculum emphasizes that this isn't just about reading books, guys. This totally applies to our real lives too. Think about it. In real life, remembering the past, basically our own personal flashbacks, well, that helps us make sense of our present circumstances. And paying attention to the warning signs of what might come, our real-life foreshadowing helps us prepare wisely for the future. Literature is really just a mirror reflecting how we navigate our own timelines. Section 3, how to spot clues, finding hidden hints. We know what these tools are now, but how do we actually find them when we're reading a text? Let's look at the mechanical triggers authors use to signal a flashback. I mean, how do you know you're jumping backward? Just look for these 3 things. Number 1, shifts in tense. If the author's been writing in the present tense, like he walks down the street, and suddenly shifts to the past perfect tense, saying he had walked down this street many years ago, you need to pay attention. Number 2 is a sudden change in location that seems totally disconnected from the current scene. And number 3, memory cues. This is probably the most obvious one. You just look for phrases like, she remembered when, or his mind drifted back to, or even, it felt exactly like that day in July. Foreshadowing, on the other hand, is a whole lot more subtle. It hides quietly. You really have to train your eyes to see it. First, look for dialogue hints. If a character jokingly says something like, "Well, what's the worst that could happen?" Trust me, the author is about to show you exactly the worst that could happen. Second, setting details. Is the main character about to make a terrible decision? The author might foreshadow this by having dark storm clouds suddenly gather in the sky, or maybe the temperature suddenly drops. Finally, symbolic elements. A broken mirror, a dying plant, a ticking clock. Authors place these specific objects in the story deliberately to kind of whisper to you about what's coming next. Moving right along to Section 4, famous examples, stories in action. Let's ground all this theory by looking at how these techniques are masterfully executed in some classic stories you probably already know. It's absolutely fascinating to see how distinctly different authors use these tools. Take Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, for example. J.K. Rowling uses a really powerful flashback when Harry remembers moments with his parents. And why does she do that? Because it perfectly explains his deep, aching longing for a family throughout the entire rest of the series. Then, look at John Steinbeck's classic Of Mice and Men. He uses foreshadowing masterfully. Throughout the early chapters, there's repeated mention of Lenny's intense physical strength and his inability to control it when he pets soft things. That isn't just a random detail. It's basically a giant flashing neon sign hinting at the tragic ending to come. And then we have S.E. Hinton's The Outsiders, which actually uses both. Ponyboy recalls these past violent fights, so that's the flashback, but the way he talks about that past violence serves as foreshadowing, heavily hinting at the massive, unavoidable conflict that's brewing between the greasers and the socks in the near future. All right, it is time for Section 5, Test Your Knowledge, Homework Time. I want to challenge you to think actively about everything we've just covered as we review what will be your upcoming homework assignment. So the crucial point here is making sure you can answer these first 4 questions with total confidence. Number 1, what is the main purpose of a flashback? Remember, it's all about revealing key past information to shape the present. Number 2, how can you recognize foreshadowing? Think about those dialogue hints, mood changes, and symbols. Now, for numbers 3 and 4, I want you to come up with your very own examples from a book you've read or maybe a movie you've watched recently. And hey, no cheating, don't use my Harry Potter or Outsiders examples. Dig into your own memory and find a moment where a storyteller manipulated time on you. And here's question number 5, which is really a critical thinking challenge. Why might an author use both flashback and foreshadowing in the exact same story? Well, when an author uses both, they're creating a fully realized 3-dimensional world. They're showing that the past directly influences the present, and the present directly triggers the future. Which actually brings us perfectly to the most important part of our explainer today. Welcome to Section 6, Education and Peace, Morality and Mindset. We are going to transition from the raw mechanics of reading right into the bigger picture of our lives, connecting narrative time to the core philosophy of the HeroesMart Academy Godly Learner series. Romans 8:6-7 promises true peace of mind to everyone who keeps their mind spiritual. It strongly contrasts a worldly, chaotic mindset with a spiritually focused one. The HeroesMart curriculum suggests something really cool here. Just like an author brings order to a story by carefully placing flashbacks and foreshadowing, a spiritual mindset brings order to our everyday existence. The core philosophy that HeroesMart Academy intertwines into all of this is that education without morality will hurt. Think about it for a second. What is the actual point of being incredibly smart, getting straight A's, and being supposedly educated if you're just going to continue making bad, immoral choices that end up hurting you and the people around you? The curriculum argues that being smart is just a tool, kind of like a flashback or a foreshadowing hint. But education combined with biblical morality, that equals peace of mind. When you use your education to make moral, spiritually grounded decisions, you completely avoid the pain of poor choices. You essentially become the wise author of your own life story, guided by the ultimate author. Which leaves me with one final, deeply important question for you today. As you go out into the world, how will you use the lessons of your past, your own personal flashbacks, to foreshadow a peaceful and wise future? Pay close attention to the clues in your life, make moral choices, and build a story you'll genuinely be proud to read back one day. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and hey, happy time traveling.